If there is only one thing you need to learn and understand about Magna Carta 1215, it's this. Magna Carta 1215 is the sole peaceful means known to humankind by which the rights of the weakest, most innocent citizens can prevail over a massive, potentially corrupt and oppressive state power. This is the voice of freedom, Magna Carta 1215 Learning Centre. Welcome to your next lesson with hosts Fitzroy and Carl.
Evening, folks, and welcome to the show. It's been a couple of weeks, and that's mainly due to me being flat out on the road and being unable to connect up, hook up, or stay in any kind of reasonable contact. Now, tonight, I'm trying to keep it as simple as possible. I'm not streaming my video. Fitz obviously doesn't stream his video, and I'm in a fairly... interesting. I'm in a motel room that has reasonable reception outside and absolutely very little inside. So just sort of holding my mouth and standing facing to the north on one leg and hoping it all works. We had planned a whole kind of different show tonight, but a couple of things have happened, and that part of the reason that we are running so late this evening. First of all, I'd like to welcome Fitz to the show. Hello, mate. How are you? First, let me apologise for the 2 weeks or so that it's been that we haven't had a show on. It's just been a little hectic with me getting from one end of the country to the other and connections and all other bits. But anyway, we'll give it a crack tonight.
Yeah, I'm wonderful. I'm actually pleased to be back on air. It's pretty tough to miss out a few weeks in a row. So, yeah, it's wonderful to come back and rejoin the community. I can see there's a fair few people have already logged in and saying hi and stuff like that. So it's wonderful to be back with you all. And yeah, hopefully we can you can see you've got something up there that I wasn't expecting.
No, sorry.
We can answer some questions tonight.
Yes, I was just trying to work on something else for those of you who aren't aware. I did a video earlier today. I need to apologise for, Fitz. There's some erroneous information in that, including a video that was actually brought out in April this year that was played on Fox. Now, when I was playing it at the time, I thought, geez, that looks familiar for some reason, but that's as far as I thought about it, and I didn't check it any further before I took it to air. So thank you for everybody who pointed that out. I still stand by it. And as I sort of screwed that up, I will show everybody now and get it out of the way. That is the FTSE, or the London Stock Exchange at the moment, folks. And let me just refresh it for you. That was 20. It's now 30 points down. Now, I don't know anything about stock exchanges, but I reckon all those red numbers mean something. And the London Stock Exchange has been open 45 minutes. And the FTSE 100 is down 30 points. The FTSE 250 down 197. 350 is down 20, and the all shares down 20. That probably means something to everybody, but anybody who knows something about shares, I just know that red in a stock exchange is not good. So there are some interesting things happening. And of course, we did say last week that would start in Europe with a financial crash, or would start in Britain with a financial crash, and that would emanate further out. So keep an eye on that, folks. Australian Stock Exchange tomorrow morning could be fun. Now, speaking of fun, Fitz, since we have been to Singleton and conducted our week-long education down there with Cherie and the team that came on board, we've had a lot of interaction from different groups around the country. One of the strongest ones have been supporters of Dick Yardley. And Mike Holt, I think, is Dick's publisher and dear supporter. Now, I've had some email conversations, and I sent through some questions to Dick. A lot of his supporters were saying, why won't you have Dick on the show and talk to him? And the problem that I have is we seem to be approaching different Magna Cartas. We have a lot of the same ideas, but I thought we were using different Magna Cartas. As it turned out, I was right, but I was sort of wrong at the same time. The questions that I posed were basically related to if you can explain to me how a Catholic Pope can rewrite the Australian Constitution, I beg your pardon, can rewrite Magna Carta 1215, how a Catholic Pope in the Vatican, an Italian who doesn't speak English and isn't part of the Commonwealth, isn't a citizen of the Commonwealth, has nothing whatsoever to do with the British Commonwealth, how does he get to rewrite an English common law document written by, for, and of the people of the British Commonwealth, signed by an English Commonwealth monarch and entrenched and sealed by that monarch at Runnymede in 1215? That is the base of the question. I essentially asked it three different ways. And one of the responses from Dick I thought was classic to begin with, Fitz. He should have just stuck with the first four words. I don't understand why. But he went on to explain he didn't understand why people didn't just accept the 1901 Australian Constitutional Act, and also went on to supply some details about the Magna Carta that he was using. He attached that Magna Carta, and I don't have it right here in front of me, but I'll certainly make it available. The Magna Carta that he attached was Magna Carta 1225. Now, I don't know of anyone that ever accepted Magna Carta 1225. Would I be wrong in assuming that, Fitz?
Yeah, look, that's a new one for me. It'll be the same as using the 1216 and the 1217, right? The iteration.
Yes, I just thought that's attempt number 3 at fraud. Yeah.
Yeah, and so obviously it was done by the actual monarch. So that's like saying that the employee gets to write their own contract.
Yes.
That's what that's saying.
He went on to quote Articles 24, 39, 40, and 61. This is where it sort of got a bit confusing, Fitz.
Absolutely. Because this is where both you and I were scratching our heads going, hang on a second, that makes no sense.
You reviewed the document that he attached, which was MC 1225. Do you want to tell the folks what you found?
Yes, so in that 1225 version, there is only 37 articles. And
so only 37 articles in the 1225 Magna Carta.
Yes.
That makes it difficult to have an Article 39, 40, or 61.
That's right. That was the first thing that jumped off the page. It's like, where are you grabbing the 39, the 40, and the 61 from if there's only 37 in the one you're drawing as your source of authority? This is where you and I are both scratching our heads. Where have they come from?
Yeah.
And so, we were both really lost as to how is that making sense right now?
So upon further digging, we tried to find out where he may have got all of this from. So the articles that he did quote, 24, 39, 40, and 61, that he claimed were part of 1225, were actually the articles out of 1215.
Correct. They were word for word verbatim what he quoted, what the articles in 1215 were. That's what we were just like, I don't understand what's happening right now.
So Article, 1215 has 63 articles. Therefore, you can have an Article 39, 40, and 61 and have a couple left over. It's really good. But yes. Magna Carta 1225 only had 37 articles, or chapters as they're known at times. So that makes it pretty difficult to have 39, 40, and 61, as we've discussed. But Dick has sent those in his reply. We've discovered that they are amalgamated into 1215. Or they are, in fact, word for word, verbatim, what came out of 1215.
Exactly.
Dick's book, I'm pretty confident. Now, I've read the first 20-odd pages. There is a lot that we're on the same page with, but I'm very confused as to which Magna Carta he stands. In his reply to us, he seems to stress that all our powers are granted to us by the authority of the Act.
Yeah, so now, our freedoms, the actual word was freedoms. Our freedoms come from, there's a specific word for word, our freedoms come from that which government has written. That's pretty much what he said. Now, that's the part that really was really hard to understand.
So
because
we, of course, believe...
Common law has got nothing to do with what's granted to you. It's what's inherent in nature.
So Dick's position is a bit unclear. Would we say it that way?
Yeah, absolutely. We'd love to get a lot of clarity about how the connections have been drawn to our rights being connected to something that is not inherent in nature, but something which is a mind construct. That's the part we don't understand. How did he make that connection?
And yet much of the early part of Dick's book refers to exactly what you're saying, the connections that we refer to. But at one point, it makes the jump from common to,
legislation. Basically, it's a legislation. It's what government legislated.
Yeah.
You know? These are all acts. He's making a connection. Common law is connected to acts of parliament.
Yeah.
And we've covered what an act of parliament is. We've done that really clearly.
Yeah, we've made that very clear. So Mike Holt is Dick Yardley's publisher. And Mike sent me an email, and just as I was about to hit the live button tonight, I received another email from him. Apparently somebody I met the other night at the Sunshine Coast show suggested that we'd have a talk. And look, I'm open to talking with him. I nearly gave him a call today. And I will ring him and have a chat. It turns out that he spoke to a lady recently, and we have the audio. I just don't know where I stand with it legally by putting it on. Now, the lady's name was Karen. I think she comes from the Sunshine Coast too. And she was speaking very well, in fact, in very familiar terms about 1215 fits. You discovered this bit of audio. And in fact, when Mike sent me the email, he attached it as well. We discovered some interesting things in that too.
Yes, there was a lot of language used that's familiar to the language you and I use to explain it.
Which is great.
Yeah, which I'm really happy with. And also there was acknowledgements by Mike about what he was being taught, that there is only one pure source. He actually says it, of law, and that is the 1215 Magna Carta. He actually says that.
He does a number of times, agrees that it is supreme.
Yeah. And so there's a question just popped up in this chat that I did want to address. And I just want to find it. Where is it? Here it is. So this is from John Peter. Question: if our rights are inherited, I think it says inherited in nature.
Yeah.
I think that's meant to be inherent. Why do we need MC 1215 rather than the source of our rights, God? All right. So that's one thing to know, that your rights are inherent in nature. But if you're going to live in a community, in a society, you need to have some way where there's an agreement by how you are going to conduct yourself. So the MC 1215 is that agreement that we all have committed to, by which we can prove that this is how we wish to live. So it's just a way to formalize it. It's formalizing of your knowledge of what is inherent in nature. That's all you're doing. So then there can be no one that can say, oh, no, I don't agree to that, or I didn't know that was in existence. You know, nothing like that. This is just a formalized way, because if you have a complex society, you need to have a structure in place, you know, to manage that complexity. And so you need to have a cornerstone by which you operate from, and everything emanates from, that is clear and transparent. And that's, if you can understand that, there's no contradiction here. So I'm hoping that explains your question, John Peter. So back to the topic. So what we were understanding when we were watching Mike Holt speak is that he understood now, with that interview, that the 1215 Magna Carta is that very source by which we, the people, have understood how to live in harmony with one another, and that we want to follow this structure as our cornerstone, right, of what we, you know, our foundation, by how everything else we do emanates from that, and we build upon that. That's what we were understanding. as to what he was getting from that interview he was doing with that woman called Karen.
And I think Karen runs a group on the Sunshine Coast. I want to say that she may have even run a big event last weekend with Dr. McCulloch, which I did have a ticket for, but unfortunately couldn't attend. Notwithstanding, love to sit down and have a chat with Karen and maybe turn up and have a chat with her group. They seem to have some pretty interesting things. People are asking, Fitz, what happened in 1666? Well, folks, can you guess? There may have been a bit of a turning of the tide. And why? Well, symbology will be their downfall. Isn't that part of what we're saying?
Yeah.
So 1666 to 1688, a lot of interesting things happened. Okay, Fitz, shall we start at 1666 then?
Yeah, so I think it was Charles II, to memory. He gave assent, royal assent, to the CQV, Cestui Act, which just reaffirmed that we, the people, dead fictions that get turned into this corporate structure that now can be harvested. So those who choose to harvest us, they don't have to bear the brunt of that karmic debt because we are dead. So they've turned us into dead fictions. So then they can harvest us. That's basically that superstition that they created to shield them from the karmic debt of actually harvesting a living being that has a soul. So they converted us into dead ones. And
this
then
was also amongst the earliest points of the insertion of what we would now call the legal profession. It was sort of working previously in a more rudimentary fashion, but wasn't this where it really became fashioned and legalese became a development?
Yeah, I mean, legalese was in practice before, but this is where it really got nailed in, where it really just, this is where it solidified, because then after that came the 1688 Bill of Rights. And if we understand what a bill is has two key meanings, and one is a debt instrument, and the other is that it's an act of parliament. Right? Both of these things are fictions. They're not. You can't find them in nature. They're not in reality. So how do you connect something that's a fiction with something that's in reality? And what is in reality are your rights, because you're born with them. And what are rights? Rights are actions that are in support of maintaining the quality of life. So how can you now turn that into a debt instrument or turn rights, that's that which is inherent in nature, how can that now legitimately be turned into something that is an act of parliament? Like the two things are in contradiction to one another. So that's what happened in between those 2 years of 1666 and 1688.
Yep.
And that actually gets uncovered in that video that Mike Holt does with the woman called Karen, where she actually explains it to him. And he actually says, "Oh, I didn't know that." So it would give you the impression that he's actually learning something new, that he's willing to.
Was this about the time where the ad was inserted for the book that he's publishing on behalf of Dick Yardley?
It's in between there. The ad gets inserted. There is a mention of 1688 beforehand, but not to that level of clarity. Then after that, it gets mentioned even deeper. But what we need to understand is this wasn't a live thing. This was pre-recorded, and the ads were inserted. You know what I mean? At some point down the track. So it's not like he didn't know the content before he put the ads in. But yes, it is the same video that has the ads in it that do promote Dick Yardley's book, and also Dawn Kelly, which uses the 1901 as well.
Thank you, Mason. Abby on Saturday, not Karen. So there you go. But I do believe Karen is from the Sunshine Coast. So thanks, Mason. Go and give your wife, lovely Donna, a kiss from me. Wonderful woman that she is. So like and subscribe, folks, if you're watching this for the first time. If you're watching it particularly on Num2K, my YouTube channel, Num2K, it seems to be stuck on 9,300. We got a few more today, like 90 or something. So haven't quite cracked 9,400, but we've been pretty hammered by YouTube over recent weeks and haven't been able to grow the audience supposedly at all. But there are some telling figures in the analytics that show a bit of difference. So please like and subscribe, share this around, folks. This is all about teaching you your own rights and how to reclaim not stand up and beg for them, but to reclaim them. And that's the whole point of our 1215 education. Fitz, we've discussed privately a number of things about Mike Holt and Dick Yardley. Obviously, Dick has a book he needs to sell, and Mike, being the publisher, has invested in this to get it printed. It must be fairly shocking to have guests on his show like he did, teaching him stuff that essentially goes against the teachings in the book that he's promoting or publishing.
Yeah, that was the
or
part.
Am I reading that wrong?
No, I mean, you and I are both in shock about that, like, because that jumped off the page for both of us. Is like, hang on a second. Here's Mike actually going, oh, I didn't know that. At the same time, promoting the book that stands in the face of what he just said he learnt.
Yeah.
You know, like in dire opposition to it. And we're like, hang on a second. How does that make sense? So I know I was confused, and I remember you saying you were confused.
Yeah.
So we were just really trying to get some real understanding about, can somebody please explain this? How does this make sense?
I think there is that offer. By the look of it, there is that email from Mike, an offer to come on and have a chat. So I will arrange that for either later this week, or we may set it up for next Monday night yet. I think that would make for a very interesting and enlightening chat for everybody. And we're not about picking fights with people here, and we're not about saying our lesson's better than your lesson, or this isn't about being top dog or top Magna Carta teachers or whatever. This is about teaching the truth, finding the truth. Now, neither, and stop me, Fitz, if I'm not speaking for you at this point. We are not about getting Magna Carta and all 63 articles of Magna Carta 1215 reintroduced as our current constitution. It is already our current constitution. We would like to wake you up to that fact, but even if you did wake up to that fact, you still may not want all of those 63. You might want to modernize it a bit. That's fine. We have been running under this 1297 farce. We've been running under governmental legislation and acts, the things that you find in theatres. And there are elements of all those things that are good and that we are going to need to bring forward at some point. So Fitz and I fully support everybody else's efforts. We only say that if we are going to go forward with a new constitution of any kind, it needs to have trial by jury in it. And trial by jury is not part of any other Magna Carta other than 1215. So the more people that we can convince, and hopefully a lot of you watching tonight are some of those people who are learning, understanding what we're saying about it, and are trying to teach others, open their eyes about it. I kid you not, if our Indigenous brothers and sisters truly understood the power of Magna Carta 1215, there would be no argument about land rights. There would be no argument about anything to do with who owns the land. It would all be theirs. In fact, it would be every Indigenous Australians. And it could happen tomorrow if you knew how to use Magna Carta 1215 in a court. Now, that would be challenged if we took it to court tomorrow. No, they would drag it out for as long as possible, but there are big things coming. In fact, right now, let me just have a quick look and a bit of a refresh. So when we started, we were at 53 points down on the FTSE 100 in London. Right now, it's settled a bit. We're at 51 and a half. So FTSE 250 is down 250 points. So there's been a big shock at the opening of the London Stock Exchange today. There are going to be other big shocks, I suppose, off the back of that as other exchanges open up around the world. Change is coming. All Fitz and I are trying to do is to get as many people as possible to consider trial by jury when the time comes. And to be able to consider it, you need to understand it. And that's why we're teaching what we're teaching. And until somebody else comes along and tells us that and proves to us that what we're teaching is wrong or incorrect or updated, and they can prove why a Catholic Pope who doesn't speak English and lives in a city inside a country, and rules from on high, has his feet kissed by naked babies at midnight. I am just wanting you, please explain to me how that kind of a person, a Catholic Italian Pope in Italy, in the Vatican, can rewrite an English Commonwealth constitutional document that gives us all our constitutional rights, and just happen to leave out the 4 particular things that pertain to giving us our rights. Now, I look forward to Mike and or Dick or anybody else coming forward and wanting to talk about that.
So I just wanted to add one thing while you're there, Carl, if that's okay. And that is that first it needs to be understood, and we've covered it on this show, what a constitution actually is and who gets to write it. That's what we go over and over and over again. And if you understand that a constitution is the supreme code of conduct of the land that actually outlines where power lies when it is observed, well, if people create government, the only place it can lie is with the people, because we are the creators of government. Now, if you accept that anything else that doesn't enshrine that doesn't acknowledge that people are the seat of the power, if you acknowledge that's your constitution, you are acknowledging that you are a slave. That's whether you like it or not, that doesn't change. That's the fact. It's the order of creation, right? Who created what? And if people created government, they must have a way to be in charge of it. Now, in that 1901 Commonwealth of Australia Constitution Act, there is nothing that ever mentions anything about, and we've covered it, trial by jury, where people get to decide on the fairness of legislation. There's nothing about that. And I've shown you what it says. It says Parliament creates the judiciary. So they have created themselves as your gods and then gave it to the people to vote on. Do you vote for us to be your gods or not? But either way, we're still going to be your gods. We're just going to give you another version of the same document if you don't like this one.
Yep, true.
And that's what really needs to be understood. What is a constitution, right? And those questions I didn't see answered in anything Dick has done or in anything Mike has done. They never outline that. They say we the people, et cetera, but we the people didn't write those things that they're talking about.
Yeah.
And so what does we the people really mean?
Whereas on behalf of the people, I think the statement is, isn't it?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so that's not how it goes. It's not about that. It's about what government cannot do. It outlines the consequences of what they cannot do. And the only place that exists is in Article 61. If government doesn't keep to its promise, then we, the people, have a legitimate authority to take back that which is ours. There is no other place that's written. That's why they had to get rid of it. And that's why they changed it in 1216, should I say. Because that was a threat to those who seek to rule and dominate. They couldn't have that. So that really needs to be understood, why we're making it very crystal clear about, if you understand that rights are inherent in nature, that no one has authority, no one man has authority over another. That does not exist in nature. How do we now come to an arrangement where we grant, because you can only grant authority if it doesn't exist in nature, where we grant authority to those people we believe are willing to put effort into making our lives more wonderful. So they're going to make decisions on our behalf. Well, we need to have a contract that makes sure that if they step out of line, what the consequences are. If we don't have that contract, then we are going to what? We're going to appeal to those people who wish to dominate and control us. Without that contract, that's what you're going to get. That contract was created so that we wouldn't get those kind of pathologies, being drawn to those positions. We would get genuine, honest, forthright, committed people who are willing to serve. This is the highest order of consciousness when you act in the service of your fellow man. But we needed to have some kind of way to make sure that that will never, ever get changed. And there's no other place that you, Carl, nor I have found that that has been agreed to.
Yeah.
There's only one place we found that that's been agreed to, nowhere else.
It might all be usurped by this question from Aussie Pride. Now, we know this story, Fitz. Do you want to tell it?
Is this the one that's written here? Carl, did you know the king basically handed over the Commonwealth to the Pope? Oh, yes. I love this one. This is my favorite.
Yeah. You have a great version of this.
Okay. So we first need to understand what the king's role is. So now we need to go back to Alfred the Great. So Alfred the Great, he was given the opportunity to be appointed into the position of monarch. But because he was he had Gnostic knowledge, so he had knowledge of the true nature of natural law, what he said was, I will only take the position if I'm elected by the people. That was the true nature of common law when it was started back in the 800s. I don't know if it started at 800s, but that was the traditions they had in place. That a king, it wasn't a sexy job. It had a lot of responsibility. And so people would elect someone that they trusted could hold that level of responsibility. So he wasn't appointed because it was an elected position. That's the true nature. Now, why would you elect someone into the position of great responsibility, right? Because you need to be able to trust that they're going to do what? Be in service of you and the traditions and customs that you choose to live under, that you've tried and tested, that in the daily tribulations of daily life have been tested of what works and what doesn't. So then there's an understanding of what we require to be able to live peacefully amongst one another, and we just know it. And so he only wanted there to be the wish, the will. Now remember, common law is the will of the people. Well, how do you express the will of the people? It's through the people choosing who they wish to stand in their name. And that's what he did. Now, let's fast forward. The Romans come in 1066, the French, and they changed the whole thing and they put the Roman laws in there. So they mixed the true common law that was in play with the Saxon kings with Roman laws, right? So now you've got a bastardized version. Now we fast forward to when King John ascends to the throne. And what's he done? He's gone, well, I have the divine right to rule. I wasn't elected. I was handed this as a blood right. This is a birthright, because that all changed after 1066. They started making birthrights. Yeah. And then he's gone, I now am the God, so I get to decide for the people. So I now can make a contract, and that binds the people. That was never, ever agreed to by anybody. He took that by force. So when you say that comment, you're basically saying that you are in agreement with some random stranger kicking your door in and actually selling your family off to the child trafficking syndicate. That's what you basically said when you say that. Because did you actually agree to someone deciding for you if you're sovereign? Sovereign means that you are above the rulership and control of anyone else. So a king is not someone who rules and controls you. A king is someone who holds an office that is there to protect your right to self-determination. That is there to enhance the quality of how you can enjoy life with your neighbors.
Of course.
That's what the king's role was. That got bastardized. So then this king in 1215, when he was approached, and the years before that, he was way out of line with any of those agreements that the people had as to how they even wanted to have this structure where they had, someone elected to that office. He just totally dismantled that. So any agreement he made privately is not in the name of the people, because that was never the contract he took, because he took a coronation oath. Now, a coronation oath is the contract which gives him the legitimacy to actually make decisions on behalf of the people that are there to enrich their lives. He didn't get given a contract that was where he got to make decisions to dominate people's lives. That was never a contract that he was handed, that he swore an oath to. So that what statement is here makes no sense whatsoever if you understand the true nature of how the whole system was created. This comment can only make sense if you don't understand that. If you believe in the divine right of kings to rule, then this comment makes sense. But that's not, the people never agree to that. It's the same as you agreeing to anyone can come and kick your door in and sell your family off to child traffickers. That's the same thing. Because then you don't have a say in your life and you are just a slave who someone else gets to decide for. So that's pretty much what that comment is saying. That we're all slaves, that we can't think for ourselves independently. We don't have a spirit or a soul that knows the difference between objective right and objective wrong. We don't have that knowledge. And someone else, that means, has that divine knowledge and they can do it for us. Yeah. If you understand that that's what the king is, then yes, that would make sense. But that is not the true nature of how that whole system was created.
Muffin has a question. What do you do to penetrate people's subconscious to stimulate them to rise up?
One of the ones that I actually like is I like the one about where people are actually at right now in their day lives and what they can recognize. So I start with the story that I like, that I've witnessed, and I use the doctor's surgery as one because I remember that's where it would happen a lot. And that is, if you're sitting at the doctor's surgery and you've got kids and someone else has got kids, you know, you'll see there'll be a section where there's toys for kids to play with. And so what I say is, you will, not saying it's going to happen every time, but you will see it from time to time. You'll see a kid playing with something, and another kid comes in and just grabs it, you know what I mean? And then the parent gets really embarrassed and says, no, you need to share. Well, majority of parents that I've met, I'm not saying all, but they have a problem with their child not sharing. And they'll go out of their way to make sure that their child understands that sharing is a value that we have. So that's a place that I usually like to start, is where everybody, doesn't matter who you are, can recognize that. Like, you can have that conversation with anyone in the street, unless they're a narcissist, of course, but generally the general population aren't. And you'll get agreement. Like, you start there. Like, you know, do you agree that most parents, you know, will instill that value of sharing with their children? And then if you can set that up, you know, that life is about sharing, you know, that it's not about hogging or hoarding, then you can start moving to, you know, little situations that actually don't actually encompass that, right? So how is it that if we are teaching our kids that sharing is important, right, then why do we now take orders from people we've never met, right, who make decisions in our name that are actually harmful to us? That's the same as saying that someone you've never met, that you're just walking down the street, just comes and stands over you and says, now I'm going to shake you down. I'm going to take all your money. You're going to give me your car keys. I'm going to go move into your house. You know what I mean? And there's nothing you can do about it, right? And you're just going to accept it. But yet you've been teaching your kids about sharing. But you will accept this because someone has a title. And so you're trying to draw attention to the actual contradiction, just to stimulate people to think about it. It's not that you actually want to convince them. It's more that, here's a question, how do you answer that? I reckon that's a good starting point for me, just to penetrate, just a little prod, you know, just a prick in there, just to see what gets stirred up, and use something that's really familiar to all of us. And I reckon sharing is a good one, because you see it, you know, when your kids go to like Christmas, you know, they put on a Christmas show, like say it's in kinder, you know, everyone wants to come together and share in their experience. You know, we have those Christmas performances as well at schools, you know, so parents are there as well. Then they're in that spirit of sharing, which is Christmas, you know, yet when it comes to government, there's no sharing. There's just domination and control. And so how do we make that, you know, what are we teaching our kids? We're showing them with our action that we want them to share, but then we're showing them that we don't believe in that when we comply with what we're being told to do by strangers. And we don't question it, we just do it. So what is the message we're sending our children? You know, are we confusing them? Because they see what we do, they hear what we tell them, but then they see what we do, and the two don't line up. And so you try and get people to explain that, and then you watch what their brains do.
Yep. What's the difference between or from Magna Carta 1215 and the common law groups? Depends which common law group you're in, I guess. So some of the common law groups that I've had some dealings with, wonderful folks, and they're working to get themselves out of speeding fines, camera fines, for holding a mobile phone or reaching over and picking your bum and your phone happened to be, within a finger's reach of your finger. Really just corporate crime, if you like, the stuff that just drains us of money. So there are also some common law groups that are setting themselves up as peacekeepers or I suppose sheriffs. I think that's two separate things. Peacekeepers are a little bit different. There is other groups set up styling themselves as sheriffs. I think that's particularly in Victoria. So the difference, I think, with what we do, Fitz, and get me if I'm wrong here, is we only stick to Magna Carta 1215, and we're just trying to teach people about trial by jury. We don't agree with Magna Carta 1297. We don't agree that it's real. We don't acknowledge that the farcical piece of paper called the Constitutional Act of 1901 is real, but we do acknowledge that perception is reality, and the vast majority of people at the moment perceive that to be a true document. So we understand we have boundaries we've got to try and work within. What we're trying to do is open up people's minds and get them to understand that the document they are clinging to has no legal foundation. That doesn't mean to say you have to dismiss everything contained in or that was generated from those documents, laws, legislation. We can still have laws. We can still have legislation. What we have to have is the people back in control. And that only comes with trial by jury. So that's, again, leads us back to where we are, Fitz. Have I explained that right?
Yeah, like everything hinges on trial by jury. Without that, there's no control. People have no control whatsoever. They are actually slaves. So that's the primary centerpiece of which really needs to be understood. How, if we are going to be the ones who are going to suffer the consequences of government decisions, then we must have the last say, whether we're willing to do that or not. We must be in charge of our lives through having the last say. And the only way you can do that is through a trial by jury system that judges the fairness of legislation. If we the people aren't judging the fairness of the very legislation that's going to affect our lives, then we don't understand why we even started a government structure in the first place. If government is deciding on the fairness of its own legislation, that is the definition of dictatorship. That is tyranny.
It's almost like a policeman being his own witness in the stand, really, isn't it?
Absolutely, because whatever you say goes, and there's no one who can stand up against it. And so that's the centerpiece of what we're actually explaining is, how do you stand as a sovereign? How do you actually do that in real time? What mechanism needs to be available to you in order to express your understanding of objective right and objective wrong? How do you do that? Where is that mechanism? Because if it's just an idea in your mind, well, that's not going to actually create reality. So it needs to be created in reality, and there needs to be a mechanism by which that can be expressed. Well, where can that be shown in that 1901? I've never seen it, and no one has been able to show it. And the only place that it's been agreed to that I'm aware of is in the 1215. There is nowhere else. So if you are not the master of your own domain, then who is? And anything other than that in 1215, I've not seen. And so I'm waiting for that to show up. And until that does, then this is what we go with, because it was sealed, guys. The document was sealed. When you put a seal on something, what does it mean? There's something very specific that means. It's not signed, because when you make a signature, it's the individual that's bound to it. But that was what was called the King's Seal. So what did that represent? It represented government. And government sealed its fate when it sealed that document. And the only ones who are able to unseal it are the creator of government. And we know that the government didn't create itself. So who created government? We did. So we can only unseal it. And why would we unseal that which we've agreed to live under, that gives us the power to decide if we believe government legislation is fair or unfair. Why would we unseal that? It's never been done. You know, it's a contradiction in why we even created government, is if we allow government to dictate to us. That can only be done by theft and deception. It can't be done any other way. And so why the 1215 is so important is that's the contract that the people have with government, so government can have legitimate authority to do that which we gave it authority to do, which is to enhance the quality of our lives. That's the only reason we created government, for no other reason. So we didn't fight amongst each other trying to make a decision. You know, we created a body to do that for us, but it had to have limits put on it of what it's allowed to do. And there's no other document that I'm aware of where there was an agreement made where government is now bound to that contract, where there will be consequences if they breach it. And they're severe ones. They're not soft ones, because you can't mess around with that which is the most precious, and that is our freedoms. That is our right to self-determination. That is our capacity to actually live a wholesome spiritual life. We need certain conditions in order to do that. And if we're being violated and dictated to and dominated, well, they are not the conditions by which we can live a wholesome life. So that's why we created an agreement that if you step into this role where you take on the responsibility of serving the people, then you also take on the responsibility of the consequences when you don't. It's really simple. And that's all we've been saying. This is your common sense, guys. Most people would understand that. I'm pretty sure they would. Even the ones who are asleep.
So. Well, I don't know. Cognitive dissonance is a thing, Fitz. I mean, you know, I run into it every day. Now, there's a question here from John Peter again. The king elected, even King John's kingship was inherited through the family. I think you explained that at all before we went back to King Albert.
Yeah, 1066. That all changed when the French got in there and they started implementing Roman system. So yes, he wasn't elected. That's when they started doing the inheritance stuff. So absolutely. But before that, they did the elections.
So I'm just having a bit of a scan down, looking for questions. Have you seen anything that's leapt out at you, mate?
Just having a quick gaze through here. Not so much right now that's specific to what we're talking about.
I'll just give you a little update, folks. The British pound has collapsed against the American dollar. The FTSE 100 is down 73 points right now, and the FTSE 250 is down 311. The board is red in London, and it's going to spread. You can expect some pain tomorrow morning on the Australian dollar, and probably quite a lot on our indexes as well. The value of stocks may go down, but I always not. Look, the only thing I understand about the stock market is you only lose if you sell the stocks. So when these crashes come along, don't sell. If you've got the chance not to sell, don't sell. Hang on to them. Okay, you might wind up with something worthless, but if you sell, you're going to wind up losing money anyway. So what's the point? What's the problem? But if you hang on to it, you never know. Your stocks might bounce back, or something good could come of it. So don't go throwing yourself off any balconies, or being so upset. There are calls, certainly, and if you are smart enough to take heed of some of the warnings that have been put out recently and have managed to go and buy yourself some metal, then that might be a good thing. But it looks at this point like the British pound is collapsing and the market is going south in UK, the London Stock Exchange. And that's the only part I've had the opportunity to really have a look at. But I'm sure if you go to your favourite news site, it'll be all over that as well. Fitz?
Just saw a couple of questions, actually, if that's okay. So the poop that took a pee, when did trial by jury first come about? From the reading I've done, it was way back in the ancient Greek, when the ancient Greeks had their system going in 800 and something BC. That's the first I heard of it. I'm guessing tribally, it's probably just been in existence as a guess, but I'm not from a tribe, so I'd love someone who is to be able to tell me the history of that one.
Well, we've actually discussed that with our Indigenous tribal law. In fact, I was having a chat with Auntie Glenda, which reminds me I owe her a phone call. I was having a chat with her about it. Magna Carta 1215 and tribal law or common law can look very similar. And her worry was, well, God, we're not going to go back to spearing people, are we? No, we're not. But it would allow if our Indigenous brothers and sisters would learn a little bit more about Magna Carta 1215, they will find it's very, very, very familiar to them, because particularly those traditional owners who are living a traditional lifestyle under traditional law, they will see a great deal of familiarity in 1215, won't they, Fitz?
Absolutely. And the best part is that they only get judged by their peers, so people in their community that know them. It's not, you're not going to be judged by someone who doesn't live with you. It's within a very small radius of where you live that people have some knowledge. So how are you ever going to get shafted? Because then anyone who judges you that lives in your community knows that they've created that for themselves. If they've done something that is, with malicious intent to send you off to prison or whatever, well, they know they've set a precedent that's going to come back on them. So why would they do that? This is the true understanding of natural law. You get back what you put out. And so that's the beauty of it. Like, if you truly understand it, it's the only system of equity that can exist. There's no other. That's the foundational principle of justice. There has to be equity, where we're all equal under the law. No one has special privilege. And that's what the 1215 MC sought to do, is to make sure that regardless of your job title, whatever family history you have, whatever sort of special ideas you think you have about who you are and what makes you magnificent, you're still equal under the law. And you don't get to choose the law, because that's just in existence before you even came into existence. So you don't choose that, but you are equal under it. And the 1215, all that did is to reassert it. It didn't invent it, it just reasserted it. You need to understand the difference. So it's asserting that which is already in existence and making that what we work from. And then the other question I just wanted to answer here, it says by Shelley Hansen, do you have the trial by jury system in a picture visual format showing the path? It's in the earlier lessons. We've actually shown, I'm not sure if it's lesson 3, don't quote me on that. But yeah, we've shown the graphics that have that in there. So it'll be there. But if you're in the MC 1215 network chat group, I can also post it up there as well, guys, so you can see that. While I'm talking about that, if I just can have a second, Carl,
Sure, man.
Just want to make a couple of announcements. We've updated all the files in the group, so they're all really streamlined, really easy to understand. We've got infographics, guys, that show you how the pathway is connected. So it explains the oath, what it means, any questions that people have, the usual ones that have.
We've dropped you there, mate.
I'm not coming through.
Oh, you are now. You're back.
Okay. Yep. So I was just saying that the files in the group now, in the MC 1215 chat group on Telegram, there's infographics that show you actually how to navigate in the file section. They actually explain what each file means. It's got a code on it now, so you can find what file code is attached to what you need. So if you're doing the known demands process, it's got all them listed out, what you need. If you need to do rebuttals in the demands process, it's got that as well. Cover letters, it's got the titles and their codes. Everything's really straightforward and easy to follow. So it's, a novice can jump in, read the guides, because there's guides on the oath, there's guides on the notice process, and the two separate ones are two separate pathways. It's all outlined really basic. And then we answer really common questions as well. We're putting together a frequently asked questions or Q&As, and we answer a ton of questions in there. There's like 2 pages dedicated just to dealing with the police, for example. So we talk about, signing under duress, for example, the contract with the Pope that I just spoke about earlier, that gets explained. Some people say that free man means baron. We explain what that means. That's not true. That why the idea that, that the Pope could change the contract in 1216, 1725, etc., make a statute version. We explain the difference between law and statute. There's a lot of things that get explained. And so these have all come about and compiled from the questions that we've seen come up over and over again. So we've put in a lot of effort, guys. So if you are in the group, please make use of those resources because they're there for you to understand and make your trip really smooth and you will get the support as well. But just wanted to mention that is up and running. I did want to thank, there was one individual member who made themselves available and to use their skills, that has got really methodical thinking to make this really basic. So I did want to thank them for that, because that's just changed the whole structure of the group. We went from being a little bit more hodgepodge, where there was files that were getting repeated and some that weren't really relevant, to really being streamlined and specific. Now there's no confusion, and it's all in one bulk section, guys, so you can find it all in one section. It's really easy to locate. So I just wanted to mention that before we took off for the evening. So thanks for that, Carl.
Awesome, mate. No problems at all. And we will liaise with Mike Holt and potentially Dick Yardley this week, and see whether or not we can have them on next Monday night for a bit of a chat. If that's something that they want to be involved with, we'd be happy enough to have them. Just want to thank everybody for coming in tonight. Really appreciate that. Like and subscribe if you can, folks, particularly if you're on the YouTube None2K channel. Really close to 10,000. I don't know. I don't think there's a prize or anything for 10,000. I just really hate the uneven number of 9,300 and whatever we were before we started, 90 something. So if you do haven't already done so, and you might be watching on one of the other channels, on Carl Liebold Voice of Freedom or Voice of Freedom, if you're on those, then just nip over to None2K and subscribe there. You never know which channel we're going to pop up on. And tonight we're running live on Project Matilda as well. If you haven't already done so, please go to Project Matilda and subscribe, because I think you're going to find, I can't broadcast on Facebook now for, I think it's about another 20-odd days, 22 days maybe. So you won't find anything we do here on Facebook live. I will try and post it up afterwards, though. We will also be posting to Project Matilda, as I said, and to 4 YouTube channels, 1 Twitter channel, and Project Matilda. We'll try and keep you up to date with better information than I supplied this afternoon in my idiocy. And I guess I was just a bit tired. Didn't get much sleep last night. Started at 4. No excuses. I should have checked before I played that video. I knew it seemed a bit familiar. But yeah, my mistake. I do apologise. I still stand by it. I do believe that the video was wrong. It's not 12 states that were able to track their votes. It was every state. And those results are going to be borne out. I think if you go back and look at one of my videos from last week, or possibly even the week before, after the Queen's funeral, we did sort of suggest that this was all going to begin with a financial crash that would emanate from the UK. Go now, have a look at the londonstockexchange.com, londonstockexchange.com. In fact, let me pop over and refresh the page and just see what it says.
So while you're doing that, can I just quickly jump in before you go ahead? I just want to answer a question about the link. Guys, if you go to vofhq.com, you will see the 1215 Magna Carta tab there. If you click on that, there will be the Telegram icon. And as soon as you click on that, that'll take you straight into the Telegram group, guys. It's the quickest way to do it, because I've seen people, and it's a no-fail, that one. That will get you in straight in. I've seen a lot of people get the link and they just haven't been able to get it. So everyone who's on here asking about getting the link, please go to the VOF HQ site and then click on Magna Carta 1215, and you will just scroll down. You'll be able to see there's an icon there of the group, and just click on it. It'll take you straight onto the group. So hopefully that answers the question. Sorry, Carl, you go ahead.
That's all right, mate. So yes, the market is dropping. It's in the high 60s at the moment. I'm just having a look at the price against of the pound against other things. It's currently sitting at about 60 cents Australian, 89 euros. Looks like it's 93 US cents to the pound. So if I'm reading a live site, then that's what they're saying about that at the moment. It's going to be an interesting night on the market, so something just to keep a bit of an eye on. Fitz, thanks again for everything you've done for us tonight. I think it's been a good chat, a bit of a Q&A. We've been able to sort out a few little questions. Okay, hang on. There was a question I just saw, or something I just saw up there. It came from a very familiar name. Good info for city people. Try going to the bush to find out the real country of Australia. Keep up your good work. Yeah, all right. I don't know. I was in Singleton for a whole week. It doesn't get much more real bush than that, I suppose. It could. I'm going to Wallangarra. I don't think it gets much more bush than that. Hello, Kerry. Thank you for the tip. Going to head up the coast. It's difficult to stop at every little pub and club in Bend in the town, but I'm happy to go anywhere. I haven't been asked to go to Walgett, or I haven't been asked to go to Quilpie or Winton or Barcaldine or Emerald or Gympie or any of those little country towns. Doesn't mean I won't go. So if there's people there that want me to go in Queensland, there you go. There's a little list there. If you want us to turn up there and maybe you want a bit of MC 1215 education with Fitz, I can't promise he'll show his face. But we're happy to turn up and do all this. No problems whatsoever. So please, don't think that we're shy about country or city living. That certainly isn't the case. Very happy to get out into the bush and tell real stories.
Just quickly, Peter Ackers, what's my Telegram name? The best way to do that is get onto the group, the MC 1215 network chat group, and just put a message in the actual chat, and then I'll respond to you privately. That's probably the quickest way to get that done. So if you remember what I said earlier about going to the vofhq.com website, and then you can enter the Telegram group through there, and then just message the group, and then I'll message you.
All right. Well, thanks again, Fitz. Look forward to another big show next Monday night, and I will make it next Monday night for sure.
Yes, go guys. I'm sorry. Thanks for being here with us tonight. Wasn't sure how many people would be here because we did miss a couple of weeks. So we're looking to be consistent because we understand knowledge needs consistency. Because you are consistently being lied to, we need something else consistent to sit as the the foundation, so you can keep focused and get that knowledge solid inside you. So hopefully we're going to be able to get back on track and have our weeklies back as they always were before.
That's the plan, Jan. I've just got to stop moving around so much. All right, mate. Have a good one, and we will speak again. And if it warrants during the week, we will get you on again.
All right, wonderful. Thanks again, guys. It was lovely to see you all in the chat. It was wonderful to be back after a couple of weeks break, and I'm looking forward to next week. And yes, thank you, Carl, for all your effort. And I'm not sure if you're going to do another live about the actual stock exchange, but if you do, I'm sure there's people here that would like to see what you got to say.
I think I'll probably go and read up a bit on what's happening on it first before I do anything like that. And I do have to be out of bed at 4 o'clock tomorrow morning, so might be a bit limited. I might do another one tomorrow morning very early, but I certainly won't do it from the same location I did it last time. That'll mean something to those that know. All right. Love your work, Fitz. Have a good one.
Okay, likewise, guys. Good night, everyone. I look forward to seeing you next week.
All right. Thanks very much, folks. Please go to the website, vofhq.com. I have sent Fitz a link to everybody who is looking for Magna Carta lesson number 7. I have sent Fitz a link. I've found it. It's actually on Project Matilda. I can't download it from there, so we'll link it to Project Matilda, and we'll put that on the VOFHQ Magna Carta 1215 website. So you'll be able to access it from there. I think I do have the file downloaded, but it's not on the computer that I've got with me while I'm on the road, so I can't upload the file. Keep an eye on what's going on with the markets, folks. Keep an eye overnight. Wake up tomorrow morning, you're likely to hear bloodbath, bloodbath, bloodbath. Don't freak out too much. When our market opens, it's likely to get a little bit messy too. So the dollar is likely to crash. All sorts of things are going to happen. Don't freak out. Go to the local IGA, grab yourself some tin food, another bag of spaghetti, another bag of rice, and go home. I'm not going to say get the popcorn out. I'm just going to say go home. It's going to be interesting. Next few weeks are going to be very interesting. So just remember, we're likely in for a few weeks, couple, maybe 3 weeks of pain. It's going to be difficult. But after that, things will change rapidly in the right direction. That's my belief at any rate. Thank you very much for your attendance this fine evening. And if I hear anything really astounding this evening, then I'll certainly do another live. I'll go out now and have a look around what the financial markets are saying about what's going on in the UK. It's pretty weird at the moment. The FTSE 100 has recovered a little bit. It's now in the mid-60s. but it was nearly down 80 points only a matter of 15 minutes ago. And it does say on their board that they are delaying the results by at least 15 minutes. So we could be well behind what's actually happening on the market. Maybe you've got one of those trackers. You can get online and find out what's going on faster than I can. I wouldn't know how. But I plan to go off and try and find out. Have yourself a good night, folks. If you're going on the roads at all, please stay away from the dickheads. And by God, don't you be one.
You let one ant stand up to us, then they all might stand up. Those puny little ants outnumber us 100 to 1. And if they ever figure that out, there goes our way of life. It's not about food. It's about keeping those ants in line. That's why we're going back. Does anybody else want to stay? Let's ride!